you as a head of department think your president is judging you. If your students think you as a teacher are judging you, it tends to stop conversation, real conversation. Right? So he spoke about trying to change the language, and I was saying this on Wednesday about changing the language from one of judging. Now there will come a point when we have to make a decision. But before that, to spend a little bit of time just trying to create a space where there can be a real conversation about your strategy, about what you are doing in class, about what you're doing as a department, whatever it might be. So he spoke about the idea of checking in on yourself. And what we've tried to do at a school level, so this is one of the maps from the School of Business here, is we have tried to use these maps to enable individual examiners or lecturers, program teams, departments, and then the School of Business as a whole to check in on ourselves in terms of what are we doing, why are we doing it, and how are we doing it, and try to start the conversation so as to lead to a more inclusive change or changes if they're needed. So I'm going to use this as the starting point. I'm going to, and when I'm speaking here, I suppose I'm speaking with three different hats on. I'm a lecturer on this program. I'm also one of the designers of this program. So I lecture in courses in this program. I'm also one of the designers of the actual program. And I'm also the head of academic standards for the entire business school. So I'm also judging the program. So I've got three kind of hats on, and I'm kind of going to try to explore what we're trying to do, and also the difficulties. You know, so there's no point in telling people this is all easy. It isn't. So we'll explore some of that as well, and we'll see how we get on. And again, if there's a particular point that people are particularly interested in, well, let's just stop there and have that conversation. Okay. So I suppose if I was trying to think about how to frame this. When I did my kind of improvised talk for the last 40 minutes on Wednesday, when we were talking about the questions that were asked about how do we go to being really student-centered, and how do we know whether we're doing it well or not, or effectively or not, I spoke about before kind of buying in technology and building new buildings and all of that, it has to be cultural. It has to be a shared understanding by faculty and of course students. So I'm going to expand a bit on what I said last Wednesday, which is when people say, well, how do we start this? All right. Well, I would say this. When we said on Wednesday, we said start from where your students are at. The other thing you have to do is start from where your faculty is at, and start from where your context is at. And what I mean by context is the environment. We could be doing brilliant stuff, but not necessarily for the environment that our students are going to be going into. You know, economics, so again my discipline, would be a very good example of that. The world within which you might use economics as a way of thinking is very dynamic, is very changeable, is very uncertain. Yet a lot of the economic tools we've used are tools that deal with predictability. So we've had to try and shift our thinking if economics is to still be relevant for the context within which we operate. So if I was to say anything, it's about start from where you're at. And then I'm going to talk about a few principles that we're trying to bring in terms of how we have this conversation. If I can find what I just wrote.